The stars had belonged to the Varathian Empire for 300 years. Fleet Marshal Draxos stood before the assembled delegates
Your defiance
of
is
the Galactic
noted,
Council
human. It changes
and
nothing.
felt the weight of
We are
that
prepared
history
for
in
you.
his
Stand
bones.
down. You
62
will fall.
years of life.
Your
40
caution
years
is
of
a death
military
sentence,
service,
human.
Patience, we
9
must assess their
successful
full
conquest
strength.
Assess
campaigns,
while they overrun
not a
us.
single
Trust me.
failure. The council
Admirals
chambers stretched
Culver and
above them like
Krolyius
a
by
cathedral of
size.
power.
So you
50
saw few
meters
by
of
the
curved
United
titanium walls rising
time
to
has
a
come.
vaulted
A new
ceiling,
era begins.
studded with
Our
view
strength
screens
is absolute,
showing
my
the
lord.
territories
Then let
of
it be
47
so.
different species. Most of those territories were colored in Varathian crimson. The Empire had expanded slowly, methodically, inevitably, like a tide that never receded. Draxos' skin was the color of weathered stone gray and textured, patterned with the scars of 4 decades spent in void combat. His eyes glowed with the faint red luminescence common to his species, but his burned brighter than most. Enhanced combat biology, a mark of the elite warrior caste. His voice when he spoke rumbled like distant thunder across a battlefield. Honorable delegates, he began his words requiring no amplification to fill the massive chamber. The Empire has made a discovery that will benefit all species under our protection. Protection, that was the word the Varathians always used. Not conquest, not subjugation. Protection. High Regent Vorn sat in the elevated throne at the chamber's apex, his ancient form draped in ceremonial armor that had witnessed the fall of civilizations. He was old even by Varathian standards, over a century of life behind those dimming red eyes. But his mind remained sharp as broken glass, and his will had never bent. "Proceed, Fleet Marshal," Vorn said. His voice carried the weight of absolute authority. Draxos activated the holographic display in the chamber's center. A 3-dimensional star map materialized in the air, spinning slowly. 47 delegates leaned forward in their seats. Some wore expressions of curiosity, most wore resignation. They had seen this presentation before. Different star, different world, same inevitable outcome. Our long-range survey vessels have located a habitable world in the outer regions of the galaxy, Draxos continued. The planet orbits a yellow dwarf star designated as Sol, the 3rd planet in this system. The primitive inhabitants call it Earth. The hologram zoomed inward. A beautiful blue and green sphere appeared wrapped in white clouds gleaming with oceans. Draxos had conquered 9 worlds in his career. Some had been barren rocks rich in minerals. Some had been lush paradises teeming with simple life. Earth looked different. Earth looked almost peaceful. Initial scans indicate significant mineral resources, Draxos said, cycling through data screens. Rare earth elements, heavy metals suitable for industrial production. The biosphere appears stable and compatible with 17 known species represented in this council. Agricultural potential is rated exceptional. He paused for effect. Let them see the wealth. Let them imagine the tribute flowing to their homeworlds if they voted correctly. More importantly, the planet is inhabited by an intelligent species. They call themselves humans. The hologram shifted. Images of human cities appeared. Towers of glass and steel reaching toward the sky. Vehicles moving on primitive roadways. Aircraft using jet propulsion. Space stations in low orbit constructed from bolted metal segments. Chemical rockets lifting cargo on pillars of flame. Delegate Crix of the Thaxian Concordat made a clicking sound with his mandibles. His insectoid form shifted in his chair, compound eyes reflecting the holographic light in fractal patterns. Fleet Marshal, these structures suggest a moderately advanced civilization. What is their technological classification? Draxos smiled. The expression looked wrong on a Varathian face. Too many teeth, too much satisfaction. Faster than light, he said. Chemical combustion for propulsion. They have achieved limited spaceflight within their own solar system. A small orbital station. A few robotic probes sent to neighboring planets. They successfully landed biological entities on their own moon approximately 100 years ago. They consider this their greatest achievement. Several delegates made sounds that approximated laughter in their various languages. Chemical rockets, moon landings, technologies most species had abandoned thousands of years ago. It was like discovering a civilization that still used stone tools to hunt prey. Furthermore, Draxus continued, his voice hardening with professional assessment. The humans have no unified planetary government. Our intelligence division has identified 193 separate political entities. Many are in active conflict with each other. They fight wars over resources, territory, and ideology. He pulled up footage from Earth's surface. Military forces engaged in combat. Tanks rolling across barren landscapes. Aircraft dropping explosive ordnance. Soldiers firing primitive projectile weapons at each other. Their most powerful weapons are nuclear devices based on atomic fission and fusion, crude but effective against their own kind. Our shielding technology renders such weapons completely obsolete. The display showed more images. Human cities, human vehicles, human spacecraft that looked fragile and small to the assembled species who traveled between stars and commanded energy weapons. The humans looked like children playing with toys. The Empire has decided. Draxos announced that Sol 3 and its surrounding system will be incorporated into Vorathaean territory. The humans will be given the opportunity to surrender peacefully and become productive members of the Empire. If they refuse, they will be subdued through standard military protocols. Delegate Thane of the Draxian Coalition, a massive mammalian creature with thick gray fur, leaned forward. His species had been conquered 140 years ago. They had resisted for 3 months before surrendering. Draxos had studied that campaign during his academy training, a masterclass in overwhelming force application. Fleet Marshal, if they are divided and primitive, why do we need a formal council authorization? Our standard conquest protocol for pre-FTL species requires minimal force. Draxos nodded, a reasonable question. Standard protocol indeed calls for a fleet of approximately 100 warships for pre-faster-than-light civilizations, he acknowledged. However, I have requested additional forces for this operation. Not because the humans pose a military threat, but because this conquest will be broadcast to every species in the galaxy. He gestured and the hologram changed. Now it showed the Vorathaean fleet in all its terrible glory. Hundreds of warships arranged in formation. Dreadnoughts stretching 5 kilometers from bow to stern. Battleships bristling with plasma cannons. Cruisers built for speed and firepower. Destroyers and frigates forming protective screens. 847 warships, Draxos announced, 6 dreadnoughts, 42 battleships, 150 cruisers, the remainder in supporting vessels, the 7th Subjugation Fleet, under my direct command. The silence in the chamber became absolute. Even species who had grown accustomed to Vorathaean military demonstrations seemed shocked by the scale. Crix's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of agitation in Thaxian physiology. Fleet Marshal, with respect, 847 warships seems excessive for a species that cannot even achieve faster-than-light travel. Are we to understand that the humans pose an unexpected threat? No, Draxos said flatly. The humans pose no threat whatsoever. Our analysis indicates total military superiority across all engagement categories. Energy weapons, shield technology, armor composition, faster-than-light capability, sensor range, tactical coordination. We exceed them in every measurable metric. Then why such overwhelming force? Crix pressed. High Regent Vorn spoke before Draxos could respond. His ancient voice cut through the chamber like a blade. Because the Empire wishes to send a message, Delegate Crix, not to the humans, to the galaxy. Understanding rippled through the assembled delegates. Draxos saw it in their postures. The slight sagging of shoulders, the dimming of bioluminescent patterns, the flattening of ears or antennae. This operation will be broadcast on all council frequencies, Vorn continued. Every species will watch as 847 Vorathaean warships arrive at Earth. They will witness our ultimatum. They will see the humans realize the futility of resistance. And they will watch as Earth joins the Empire, whether through peaceful surrender or military subjugation. He paused. Let the weight of his words settle. Let every species remember why they serve the Empire without question. Let them remember that our resources are unlimited, our reach is absolute, and our will is inevitable. Draxos pulled up tactical projections, holographic timelines showing the predicted course of the operation. Our intelligence indicates the entire conquest will require less than 1 planetary rotation of Earth, approximately 24 hours by human timekeeping. The fleet will emerge from hyperspace near the 4th planet in the Sol system, a red desert world the humans call Mars. From there, we will transmit our ultimatum in all major human languages. He cycled through communication protocols. Sample broadcast prepared by the Linguistics Division. The humans will be given 6 hours to respond. Our psychological profiles indicate they will experience several stages: initial disbelief, panic, governmental chaos as their 193 political entities attempt to coordinate a response. Eventually, the weight of reality will force them to accept the obvious truth. Resistance is impossible. Surrender is the only logical option. Tactical Officer Vesh, standing at his station near the chamber entrance, raised a data slate. He was younger than Draxos by 2 decades, probably 42 years old, but he had served under the fleet marshal for 15 years. Sharp mind, meticulous attention to detail, a warrior who understood that battles were won by information as much as firepower. Fleet Marshal updated intelligence from our deep space reconnaissance. Draxos nodded for him to proceed. Our long-range sensors have completed a final sweep of the Sol system, Vesh reported. We confirm one orbital station in low Earth orbit, crew complement estimated at 12 individuals, 37 active satellites for communication and observation, one small outpost on Earth's moon currently unmanned, no military installations detected beyond the planet's surface, no deep space vessels, no patrol ships, no defensive platforms. Delegate Thane spoke again, his deep voice carrying a note of something that might have been pity. Fleet Marshal, surely the humans deserve a chance to join the galactic community peacefully. If they are as primitive as your intelligence suggests, they cannot possibly understand what they face. Perhaps a diplomatic approach. There will be diplomacy, Draxos interrupted. 6 hours of it, after they see 847 warships arrive in their system, after they understand that resistance means extinction. Then we will offer them terms, integration into the Empire, protection under Vorathaean law, the opportunity to serve and contribute to galactic civilization. He fixed Thane with a steady gaze, red eyes meeting dark mammalian orbs. And if they refuse those generous terms, Delegate Thane, then they will learn the same lesson your world learned 140 years ago. The Empire takes what it wants, whether through agreement or through force. The choice is theirs. Thane said nothing. What could he say? His world had chosen resistance. It had lasted 3 months. 12 million dead, cities reduced to ash, military forces scattered and broken. And in the end, Draxus had surrendered anyway, integrated into the Empire anyway, become a productive member anyway. The only difference was the cost in blood. High Regent Vorn called for the formal vote, a procedural necessity. The Council existed to make Vorathaean commands seem like collective decisions, to give conquered species the illusion of participation in governance. All those in favor of authorizing the annexation of Sol, 3 designated Earth, into Vorathaean imperial territory indicate approval. 47 lights illuminated on the voting display. Every species, every delegate, unanimous approval. Draxos had expected nothing less. The motion passes, Vorn declared. Fleet Marshal Draxos, you are authorized to proceed with the subjugation of Earth. The Empire expects your usual efficiency. Draxos saluted, fist to chest. The old gesture of warriors who had conquered more worlds than he could count. It will be done, High Regent. The 7th Fleet will bring glory to the Empire. The humans will become a footnote in our history. Just another primitive species that learned to kneel before Vorathaean power. The council session ended. Delegates filed out, returning to their quarters to send reports to their homeworlds. Crix and Thane lingered near the exit, speaking quietly. Draxos caught fragments of their conversation as he descended from the speaker's platform. Do you think the humans know? Crix was asking. Do they have any idea what is coming for them? How could they? Thane replied sadly. They barely understand that other intelligent species exist. They have been broadcasting radio signals into space for over a century, hoping someone might answer. Hoping to make contact with alien civilizations. Dreaming of peaceful cooperation among the stars. And instead, they get the Vorathaeans. Instead, they get us. And we will watch, and we will do nothing. Because that is what we always do. The 2 delegates parted ways. Draxos watched them go with something approaching contempt. Weakness. They had been conquered, and they had accepted HFY. Their spirits broken, their independence sacrificed for survival. Better to die standing than live kneeling. But the humans would not have that choice. Draxos would offer surrender first. Give them the chance to avoid bloodshed. If they were wise, they would accept. If they were foolish, they would resist, and the galaxy would watch them die. Either way, Earth would belong to the Empire before the week ended. Draxos made his way to the private communication chamber reserved for military command. Vesh followed the younger officer's footsteps echoing in the corridor behind him. The station's architecture seemed designed to emphasize the loneliness of power. Long hallways, high ceilings, no decoration except the occasional Vorathaean battle standard hanging from wall mounts. The communication chamber sealed behind them. Privacy screens activated. Encryption protocols engaged. What he was about to discuss could not be shared with the council delegates. Military secrets, tactical details, the brutal mathematics of conquest. Draxos activated the holographic projector. The image of Fleet Admiral Crane materialized before him. Crane was older than Draxos by a decade, probably 72 years old. more heavily scarred with cybernetic enhancements, replacing parts of his skull that had been lost in void combat 30 years ago. He commanded from the 7th Fleet flagship, the dreadnought Eternal Dominion, currently stationed at the staging point in deep space. Fleet Marshal, Crane said. His voice had a metallic edge from the vocal augmentation. The Council has approved the operation. Unanimous vote. Draxos confirmed. We are authorized to proceed. What is the fleet's status? All 847 ships report ready for combat operations. Crews are at full strength, munitions loaded, shield generators tested and calibrated. Hyperspace drives have been inspected and certified for long-distance jump. We can depart within the hour. Draxos pulled up the navigation charts. The Sol system lay in the outer reaches of explored space. Not a strategic location. No major trade routes nearby. Just a quiet corner of the galaxy where a young species had evolved, built cities, split atoms, and reached for the stars with primitive chemical rockets. Calculate jump coordinates for emergence near the 4th planet, Draxos ordered. I want the fleet to arrive in formation. Maximum visual impact. Let the humans see all 847 vessels at once. Let them understand immediately that resistance is futile. Crane nodded. Jump coordinates confirmed. Emergence point will be 1 astronomical unit from Sol 4. Mars and human designation. We will have clear line of sight to Earth. Sensor range will cover the entire inner system. Transit time. Hyperspace calculations indicate 3 weeks standard time. The jump will strain our engines. Sol is at the edge of our operational range, but the drives will hold. We have made longer jumps. In 3 weeks, 21 days for the humans to continue their existence in ignorant peace, building their cities, raising their children, dreaming of futures they would never see. Not as a free species in any way. Draxos felt nothing about that. No guilt, no satisfaction, just professional assessment. This was his function, conquest, expansion, enforcing the Empire's will across the stars. What is your estimated timeline for the operation itself? Draxos asked. Crane pulled up tactical projections, holographic representations of Earth and its orbital space, potential human military responses, probability calculations. Our intelligence indicates the humans maintain approximately 20,000 military aircraft of various types, primarily atmospheric fighters and bombers, approximately 40,000 armored ground vehicles. Naval vessels numbering in the thousands, though, these are limited to their ocean surfaces. Nuclear weapons estimated between 5 and 15,000 warheads. He zoomed in on specific data points. All of this is irrelevant. Their aircraft cannot reach orbital altitude for sustained combat. Their ground forces cannot engage void-based targets. Their naval vessels are confined to water. And their nuclear weapons, while destructive to other humans, will be completely ineffective against our shielding technology. What about their space assets? Draxos prompted. Minimal. The orbital station I mentioned, a few satellites, no armed spacecraft, no void fighters, no defensive platforms. They have chemical rockets capable of reaching low orbit, but these require hours of preparation and launch from fixed ground installations. We could destroy every launch facility from orbit within the first hour of engagement. Crane paused, pulling up psychological profiles. Based on analysis of human behavior patterns, we predict the following response timeline. Upon receiving our ultimatum, their governments will require 2 to 4 hours to coordinate a collective response. There will be disagreement, debate. Some factions will advocate immediate surrender. Others will argue for resistance. Eventually, their military commanders will review the tactical situation and reach the obvious conclusion. They cannot win. Resistance will result in massive casualties for no strategic gain. And then they surrender, Draxos said. And then they surrender, Crane agreed. Total estimated time from ultimatum to capitulation, 6 to 8 hours. We will not need to fire a single shot. Draxos studied the projections. Clean, efficient, professional. Exactly the kind of operation that had built the Empire's reputation across 300 years. And if they resist anyway, he asked, if emotion overrides logic. Crane's expression hardened. Then we proceed with standard subjugation protocols. Orbital bombardment of military installations, precision strikes on governmental centers, demonstration of overwhelming force. After losing a few cities, they will reconsider. Humans are emotional, but they are not suicidal. They will surrender to preserve their species. Acceptable losses on our side. Estimated at 0. Even if they launch every nuclear weapon simultaneously, our shields will hold. Even if they develop some unexpected technological surprise, we have overwhelming numerical superiority. 847 ships fleet marshal. The humans would need to destroy more than 400 vessels to achieve tactical parity. They have nothing that could accomplish such a feat. Draxos nodded slowly. The number supported the conclusion. This would be his 10th conquest. Easier than the previous 9, a primitive species with no real capacity for resistance. A textbook operation. Future cadets would study this campaign at the academy, learn how to conduct efficient subjugation with minimal expenditure of resources. Begin final preparations, he ordered. I will join you aboard Eternal Dominion within 12 hours. We depart for Sol as scheduled. Acknowledge, Fleet Marshal. The 7th Fleet awaits your command. The hologram dissolved. Draxos stood alone in the communication chamber, looking at the star charts still displayed in the air. Somewhere out there, 900 trillion kilometers away, humans were going about their daily lives, unaware that their independence had just been voted away by a council of 47 species, unaware that 847 warships were preparing to end their civilization as they knew it. Vesh cleared his throat quietly. Sir, if I may ask a question, speak. Do you ever wonder what they think about the species we conquer? In those final hours before we arrive, when they still believe they are free? Draxos turned to face his tactical officer. Vesh's red eyes glowed with curiosity. Youth. The young always ask philosophical questions. What age taught you that philosophy changed nothing? Reality was reality. The strong dominated. The weak submitted. I do not wonder, Vesh. I know. They think about their families, their futures, their plans and dreams and hopes. All the things that will be taken from them when they become part of the Empire. Does that ever trouble you, sir? No, because they will survive. Their species will continue. They will have food, shelter, protection. They will be productive members of galactic civilization. What they lose is independence. What they gain is security. It is a fair exchange. Even if they do not wish to make that exchange, Draxos smiled grimly. The galaxy does not care what they wish, Vesh. The galaxy operates on simple principles. The strong take. The weak give. The Empire is strong, the humans are weak. Therefore, the Empire will take and the humans will give. This is the natural order of things. He deactivated the holographic displays. The chamber fell into dimness, lit only by the faint red glow of their eyes. Prepare my transport to the Eternal Dominion. We have a conquest to conduct. 12 hours later, Draxos stood on the bridge of the Eternal Dominion, watching through the view screens as the 7th Fleet assembled around him. 847 vessels, each one a masterwork of Vorathean military engineering, built to survive in the void, built to project power across the galaxy, built to break the will of anyone foolish enough to resist. The bridge was a cathedral of war, 20 meters high, 50 meters wide. Tactical stations arranged in concentric rings descending toward the command platform where Draxos stood. Officers worked in disciplined silence, their movements precise, their communications efficient. These were professionals, warriors who had trained for decades to reach this level of competence. Fleet Admiral Crane approached from the navigation station. All vessels report ready status. Fleet Marshal, we await your order to jump. Draxos looked at the star chart displayed on the main view screen. The route to Sol highlighted in crimson. 3 weeks of hyperspace transit, then emergence into an alien star system, then conquest. His 9th campaign had been against the Yellen Confederacy, a militaristic species with advanced weaponry and a strong warrior culture. They had resisted for 6 months, lost 3 billion population before surrendering. Draxos had respected them for that. They had fought with honor and courage, even knowing they would lose. The humans would not fight like that. The intelligence was clear. Divided, primitive, unprepared. They would panic, negotiate, and surrender. It would be over quickly. Clean, efficient, disappointing. All ships, he ordered. Prepare for hyperspace jump. Destination Sol system. We bring the Empire's light to another dark corner of the galaxy. 847 vessels activated their faster-than-light drives simultaneously. Space rippled and tore. Reality bent around the fleet. And then they were gone, racing through the hyperspatial dimension toward a blue and green world 900 trillion kilometers away. The humans had 3 weeks left. 3 weeks of freedom. 3 weeks of ignorance. Then Fleet Marshal Draxos would arrive and everything would change forever. 3 weeks passed in the void between stars. The 7th Fleet traveled through hyperspace, that dimension where physics bent and distance became meaningless. Draxos spent those weeks reviewing intelligence reports, studying human psychology, preparing for a conquest that would be broadcast to 47 species across the galaxy. He watched recordings of human achievements, their moon landing, crewed rocket boosters lifting a tiny capsule beyond their atmosphere, astronauts bouncing across gray lunar dust in pressurized suits. They had planted a flag, collected rocks, returned home to celebration and pride, primitive, touching in its simplicity, like watching children play at exploration. He reviewed their military capabilities, jet fighters screaming through their atmosphere at supersonic speeds, tanks rolling across battlefields, nuclear weapons detonating in test ranges, creating mushroom clouds that rose kilometers into the sky. Impressive by their own standards, utterly inadequate against Vorathian shields. He studied their culture, music, art, literature, philosophy. They were a young species, barely 10,000 years from using stone tools. They had potential. Under Imperial guidance, they might contribute meaningfully to galactic civilization in a few centuries. But first, they would learn humility. The hyperspace alarm sounded throughout Eternal Dominion 12 minutes before emergence. Draxos stood on the bridge, his officers at their stations, everyone performing final systems checks. Fleet Admiral Crane moved between tactical displays, ensuring every vessel in the formation was ready. All ships report navigation locks confirmed, Crane announced. Emergence coordinates verified. We will arrive one astronomical unit from Sol 4 in perfect formation. Weapon status, Draxos asked. All plasma batteries charged and ready. Missile tubes loaded. Point defense systems online. We are prepared for combat, though intelligence suggests we will not need weapons for this operation. Shield status. Full power on all vessels, multi-layered defensive screens active. Even if the humans somehow launch nuclear weapons, we will barely register the impacts. Draxos nodded. Everything according to plan, clean, professional, exactly as it should be. Emergence in 60 seconds, the navigation officer called out. The bridge fell silent except for the background hum of the ship's systems. Draxos watched the countdown display. 50 seconds, 40, 30. This moment always carried a strange quality. The instant before entering an alien star system for the first time, before seeing with your own eyes the world you had come to conquer. 10 seconds, 5, 3, 2, 1. Reality shattered and reformed. The Seventh Fleet emerged from hyperspace near Mars. 847 warships materialized in perfect formation, their hulls reflecting the distant light of Sol. The red planet hung before them, rust-colored and barren, its surface scarred by ancient geological violence. Draxos stepped to the main view screen. Mars filled half his vision. Beyond it, deeper in the system, he could see the pale blue dot that was Earth, 900 million kilometers away, home to 8 billion humans who had no idea their lives were about to change forever. Sensor sweep, he ordered, full spectrum analysis. I want to know the location of every human vessel, every satellite, every installation. The sensor officer's fingers moved across her control panel. Data began flooding onto the tactical displays. Electromagnetic emissions, heat signatures, gravitational anomalies. Everything the human civilization was producing in terms of detectable energy. Multiple artificial satellites detected in Earth orbit, she reported. Primitive communication and observation platforms. I count 37 active units, one manned orbital station. Life support readings indicate approximately 12 humans aboard. No weapons detected. Deep space assets. Scanning now, sir. A pause. Negative. No vessels beyond Earth's immediate orbital space. No patrol ships, no defensive platforms. The humans appear confined to their homeworld and its immediate vicinity, exactly as intelligence had predicted. A species taking its first tentative steps into space. Vulnerable. Unprepared. Sir, Tactical Officer Vesh said quietly, I'm detecting some minor anomalies in the asteroid belt. Unusual electromagnetic patterns. Could be natural mineral deposits, but... Noted, Draxos interrupted. Maintain monitoring, but do not let anomalies distract from primary mission. Natural phenomena are common in unexplored systems. He turned to the communication station. Open a channel to the Galactic Council, all frequencies. Let them witness this moment. Across the galaxy on the Council station and on 47 homeworlds, view screens activated. Billions of beings tuned in to watch. Some out of curiosity, some out of schadenfreude, some out of grim recognition that they had once stood where the humans stood now. In the council chamber, delegates took their seats. Crix and Thane sat together, their earlier conversation still fresh. They watched the view screen showing Mars and the massive Vorathaean fleet hanging in space like a dark cloud. 847 ships, Crix whispered, against chemical rockets. It is not war, Thane replied sadly. It is demonstration. Draxos felt the weight of those watching eyes. Good, let them watch. Let them remember why they served the Empire without question. Communications officer, he commanded. Transmit the ultimatum, all major human languages, all frequencies they use for international communication. I want every human on that planet to hear my words simultaneously. Yes, Fleet Marshal. Channels open. Broadcasting now. Draxos composed himself, straightened his posture, let his voice carry the full weight of Imperial authority. Attention, species of Earth. I am Fleet Marshal Draxos of the Vorathaean Empire. Your world has been selected for incorporation into Imperial territory. You will immediately cease all military activities and prepare to receive occupation forces. He paused, let the words sink in. Somewhere on that distant blue planet, 8 billion humans were hearing this message. In their homes, their workplaces, their government centers, confusion would be spreading like wildfire. You have 6 hours to transmit your unconditional surrender. If you comply, your species will be integrated peacefully into the Empire. You will be protected, governed, and put to productive use. Resistance will be met with complete military destruction. Another pause. Let them feel the weight of inevitability. You cannot win. You cannot escape. You can only choose how you wish to survive. Comply and live. Resist and face extinction. You have 6 hours. The transmission ended. Silence fell across the bridge of eternal dominion. In the council chamber, delegates shifted uncomfortably. They had heard variations of this speech before. Different fleet marshals, different worlds. Always the same terrible promise. Draxos checked the chronometer. 6 hours. Based on psychological profiles, the humans would need at least 2 hours to organize any kind of response. Their governments would convene emergency sessions. Their military leaders would assess the situation. Panic would spread. Then slowly, reluctantly, reality would force them to accept the obvious truth. They could not fight 847 Vorathaean warships with chemical rockets. Sir, the communications officer said, we're receiving a response. Draxos frowned. Already? How long has it been? 2 minutes, sir. 2 minutes? Impossible. No species could coordinate a planetary response in 2 minutes. This must be some local government or military unit. Not an official answer. What is the source of the transmission? Designated as NORAD Combined Space Command, location North American continent. They appear to be some kind of military coordination center. Play it. The bridge speakers crackled. A human voice. Male. Speaking English with precise, emotionless pronunciation. No panic, no fear, just flat professional assessment. Negative. Maintain position beyond lunar orbit or be engaged. This is your only warning. NORAD out. For 3 full seconds, no one on the bridge moved. The words hung in the air like something impossible. Something that should not exist in any rational universe. Then Draxos laughed. It was a deep rumbling sound that echoed through the bridge. Several officers looked at him with surprise. Fleet marshals did not laugh during combat operations, but this was too absurd, too perfectly illustrative of human ignorance. Did you hear that? Draxos asked, still chuckling. They threatened us. A species with chemical rockets has threatened the Vorathaean Empire. They warned us. Crane stepped closer, his scarred face showing concern. Sir, the response time suggests pre-planning. They may have been expecting... Expecting what? Draxos interrupted. Expecting 847 warships impossible. They have no deep space sensor capability, no long-range communication technology. They could not have known we were coming until we arrived. He turned to the communications station. Send another message. Tell them they have made a fatal mistake. Tell them we are advancing and we will accept nothing less than total surrender. Sir, the communications officer began, but Draxos cut her off with a gesture. Actually, no. Send nothing. Words are wasted on creatures who cannot grasp their situation. All ships advance to Earth. Bombardment formation. We will teach these humans the price of defiance. And the massive fleet began to move. 847 warships accelerating toward the inner system. They moved in perfect formation, a demonstration of Vorathaean military discipline. Dreadnoughts formed the center surrounded by battleships and cruisers. Frigates and destroyers created a protective screen. It was a formation designed to crush any opposition while protecting command vessels. Draxos had used variations of this formation in all 9 of his previous conquests. It had never failed. On the council view screen, species watched the fleet advance. Crix's mandibles clicked nervously. They rejected the ultimatum in 2 minutes. They did not even debate. Fools, Thane replied, or they do not understand what they face. Vesh monitored the sensor displays as the fleet moved deeper into the Sol system. Sir, those electromagnetic anomalies in the asteroid belt are intensifying. I'm also detecting similar patterns near the outer planets. Jupiter, Saturn. Could be natural phenomena, Draxos said firmly. Focus on tactical assessment of Earth's immediate orbital space. How long till we reach bombardment range? At current acceleration, 43 minutes, sir. Excellent. Maintain full sensor sweeps. If the humans launch any weapons, I want to know immediately. Though I doubt they will be foolish enough to. Every alarm on the bridge screamed simultaneously. Contact! The sensor officer shouted. Multiple contact. Hundreds of signatures appearing across the system. Draxos spun toward the tactical display. Red icons were materializing on the 3-dimensional plot. Dozens of them, then hundreds. Each icon representing a vessel of unknown type. Where did they come from? Draxos demanded. Did they use faster-than-light drives? That's impossible. They don't have the technology. No hyperspace signatures detected, sir. The sensor officer replied, her voice rising with confusion. They were already there. They were hiding. The signatures are appearing because they're dropping their stealth measures. Draxos stared at the display. The red icons surrounded his fleet. In the asteroid belt, near the outer planets, in Mars's orbital space, even in positions closer to Earth than his own formation. Sir, Vesh said quietly, they were all around us. We emerged directly into a defensive perimeter, and we didn't know it. The tactical plot updated rapidly. New contacts appearing every second. The sensor officer's hands moved frantically across her controls. Current count 412 contacts. No correction. 590, 608. Sir, they're still appearing as they deactivate stealth systems. Draxos forced himself to remain calm. Analyze the situation professionally. So the humans had more spacecraft than intelligence suggested. That changed tactical calculations, but not strategic reality. His fleet still had numerical superiority. Better weapons, better shields, better everything. Final count, he asked. 612 contacts, sir. Configured in what appears to be a pre-planned defensive formation throughout the entire inner system. 612 ships against 847 Vorathean vessels. Still favorable odds. But this was nothing like what intelligence had predicted. These humans were not primitives stumbling into first contact. They had been waiting. They had prepared. Analysis, Draxos ordered. What type of ships are these? What are their capabilities? The sensor officer worked her controls. Unknown, sir. They don't match any known design in our database. Their energy signatures are unlike any propulsion system we've encountered. They appear to be using some form of reaction drive, but the efficiency is far beyond what should be possible for a pre-faster-than-light species. Why didn't our scans detect them earlier? They were running cold, sir. Minimal thermal emissions, passive sensors only. That's why they registered as electromagnetic anomalies. We were looking for active ships with weapons hot and shields raised. We weren't looking for quiet, patient hunters. Across the galaxy, the council chamber erupted in shocked conversation. Delegates stood from their seats. Crix turned to Thane with disbelief written across his insectoid features. How is this possible? The intelligence report said they had no deep space capability. Draxos gripped the railing of his command platform. His mind raced through tactical options. This changed everything. Not the outcome, he would still win, but the time, the difficulty. Sir, we're receiving a new transmission, the communications officer reported. From Earth. Yes, sir, same source. NORAD Combined Space Command. Draxos's eyes narrowed. Play it. The same flat, emotionless voice filled the bridge. Vorathean fleet, you were ordered to maintain position beyond lunar orbit. You advanced into our defensive perimeter. You will now retreat to beyond Mars orbit, or you will be engaged. You have 60 seconds to comply. 60 seconds. They were giving him 60 seconds. The arrogance, the presumption. These primitives thought they could order a fleet marshal of the Vorathean Empire to retreat, to run from combat like some coward. Fleet Admiral Crane, Draxos said, his voice hardening to iron. Lock weapons on the nearest human vessel. All ships prepared to open fire on my command. We will show these animals what happens when you threaten the Empire. Crane hesitated. Sir, I recommend caution. We don't know their capabilities. Perhaps we should— Enough, Draxos roared. We are the Vorathian Empire. We do not show caution to primitives. We do not retreat from inferiors. All ships target the human vessels and fire at will. The 7th Fleet opened fire. 847 warships unleashed their plasma batteries simultaneously. Thousands of bolts of superheated matter streaked across space. Brilliant blue-white energy that could vaporize conventional vessels. Energy enough to melt armor and shatter shields. It was overwhelming firepower. The kind of barrage that had broken the defenses of 9 civilizations. And then the human ships moved. They didn't maneuver like normal spacecraft. There was no slow turn, no gradual acceleration. They moved with sudden violent bursts of speed, their reaction drives firing in sharp pulses that sent them darting across space in unpredictable patterns. The Vorathian targeting computers designed to track vessels moving in conventional trajectories couldn't acquire locks. Wow. Predictions failed. Firing solutions dissolved. 90% of the plasma bolts missed, completely dissipating harmlessly into the void. The few shots that did connect struck human vessels. Their shields absorbed the impacts, but not energy shields like the Vorathians used. Something else. The human ship's outer hulls seemed to burn away under the plasma fire, ablative armor that sacrificed surface layers to protect the ship beneath. It was primitive, crude, inelegant. It worked. They're scattering, Vesh reported, adopting irregular formations, unpredictable movement patterns. Our targeting computers cannot achieve reliable lock. Draxos stared at the tactical display. The 612 human ships were dispersing throughout the system, breaking into smaller groups, some accelerating toward his fleet, some maintaining distance, all of them moving in ways that made no tactical sense by Vorathian doctrine. There was no pattern, no formation discipline, no predictable behavior. Maintain fire, he ordered. Saturate their positions. Even if we cannot target precisely volume of fire, the human ships fired back. The first shot came from a vessel that had been hiding in Mars's shadow. It wasn't an energy weapon, not plasma or lasers or particle beams. It was a solid projectile, a 2-ton cylinder of tungsten carbide accelerated by electromagnetic rails to 30% of the speed of light. A kinetic kill vehicle. Nothing but dense metal moving at 90,000 kilometers per second. It struck the lead dreadnought Glorious Conquest in the forward section. The Vorathian shields, designed to dissipate energy weapons, did absolutely nothing against solid matter moving at relativistic velocity. The projectile punched through the shields like they were made of paper, through 2 kilometers of composite armor plating, through internal compartments, through bulkheads, through the reactor containment at the heart of the ship. Glorious Conquest broke apart. The reactor core no longer contained, destabilized. 5,000 years of Vorathian engineering compressed into a microsecond of catastrophic failure. The dreadnought detonated in a flash of light visible from Earth. 5,000 crew died instantly. The shockwave damaged 2 nearby cruisers, sending them tumbling away with ruptured hulls. On the bridge of Eternal Dominion, every officer stared in horrified silence at the tactical display. A dreadnought, 5 kilometers of warship, destroyed in a single shot. Report, Draxos shouted. What happened? Vesh's voice shook. Kinetic weapon, sir. Solid projectile moving at relativistic speed. Our shields couldn't stop it. The mass and velocity were too great. It went straight through everything. The humans didn't pause. More kinetic weapons fired from positions across the system. Solid metal projectiles, cheap to manufacture, but impossibly deadly at those velocities. Vorathian shields couldn't stop them. Vorathian armor couldn't withstand them. Ships that had conquered civilizations died to weapons that would have been considered crude and primitive by galactic standards. Dreadnought Eternal Conquest took a hit to its engine section. The ship didn't explode, it simply stopped. All power dead, all systems offline, drifting helplessly in space with its crew trapped inside. Battleship Pride of Dominion tried to evade. Too slow. A kinetic round hit it amidships the projectile's passage, creating a wound that ran the entire length of the vessel. Atmosphere vented. Crew compartments decompressed. The battleship broke its back and died. Evasive maneuvers, Draxos ordered. All ships break formation and scatter. We need to avoid those weapons. But the humans had anticipated this. As the Vorathian fleet broke apart into individual units, trying to dodge human ships accelerated inward, closing the distance. And as they closed, they revealed other weapons. Missiles. Hundreds of missiles launched from human vessels. Not simple ballistic projectiles, but guided weapons that maneuvered in ways that violated every principle of efficient propulsion. They wasted fuel. They made unnecessary course corrections. They moved erratically. Vorathian point defense systems tried to target them, failed more often than they succeeded. The missiles were too unpredictable, too willing to sacrifice efficiency for survival. Nuclear warheads detonated against Vorathian hulls. The electromagnetic pulses scrambled sensors. The radiation washed over shields. The kinetic force battered armor. Individual detonations weren't enough to destroy capital ships, but dozens of missiles converging on a single target could overwhelm defenses through sheer persistence. Cruiser Vengeance took 43 missile impacts in the span of 20 seconds. Its shields collapsed. Its armor cracked. The final missile penetrated to the magazine where plasma torpedoes were stored. The secondary explosion tore the ship into 3 large pieces. "They're everywhere," the sensor officer shouted. "Sir, they're using our own debris as cover. They're hiding behind destroyed ships and ambushing our formations." Draxos watched in growing horror as his fleet was systematically torn apart. The humans fought like nothing he had ever encountered. No honor, no formation discipline, no predictable tactics. They attacked from unexpected angles. They used decoys and electronic warfare to confuse sensors. They sacrificed smaller ships to draw Vorathian fire while heavier vessels lined up killing shots. They fought like they had been planning this exact battle for years. "Order the fleet to retreat," Draxos commanded. "Back to Mars orbit. We need to regroup and reassess." "Sir, hyperspace interference detected," the navigation officer called out. "The humans are jamming our faster-than-light drives. We cannot jump to hyperspace." "What?" Draxos strode to the navigation station. "That's impossible. They don't have that technology." The officer showed him the readings. "Nevertheless, sir, every ship that tries to calculate jump coordinates receives critical error codes. Something is preventing our drives from achieving the necessary quantum entanglement. We're trapped in this system." Understanding hit Draxus like a physical blow. The humans had studied Vorathian technology. They had listened to broadcasts, captured data, analyzed every weakness, and they had prepared weapons specifically designed to exploit those weaknesses. The kinetic weapons ignored energy shields. The erratic missiles confused targeting computers. The hyperspace jamming prevented retreat. Every tactic, every weapon, designed with perfect knowledge of Vorathian capabilities and limitations. This wasn't first contact. This was an ambush 40 years in the making. Sir Vesh said quietly, "We've lost 93 ships. The fleet is in disarray. We need to." "All ships defensive formation," Draxus ordered. "Dreadnoughts to center. Screen ships create perimeter. We hold here and—" "Incoming transmission," the communications officer interrupted. "Human source, high priority military channel." On screen. The view screen changed. The stars in battle disappeared, replaced by the image of a human male. He wore a military uniform, dark blue with silver insignia. His face was weathered, lines around his eyes. Gray hair cut short, probably in his 7th decade of life. But his eyes were sharp, intelligent. Completely calm despite the battle raging around both fleets. "Fleet Marshal Draxos," the human said. His voice was the same flat professional tone from the earlier warnings. "I am Admiral Stellan Corver, Earth Defense Command. We need to talk." Draxus's claws tightened on the railing. "You will surrender immediately or we will—" "No," Corver interrupted. "Simply, flatly, you will listen." The audacity, the disrespect. This primitive dared to interrupt a fleet marshal. "You have 10 seconds to begin transmitting surrender terms," Draxos snarled, "or I will personally target your homeworld, and we've been inside your network for 40 years. Draxos stopped. The words made no sense. Inside their network, what network? Corver continued, his expression never changing. "We detected your scout probes in 2025. Deep space sensor platforms conducting preliminary surveys of the Sol system. They were well hidden, very sophisticated stealth technology. But we found them." A holographic display appeared beside Corver. Data, Vorathian data, communications logs, sensor records, intelligence reports, classified information that should not exist outside Imperial networks. "We tracked them back to their source," Corver said, "followed their transmissions, intercepted their reports. And then we listened. For 40 years, Fleet Marshal, we listened to everything your empire broadcast." The hologram changed. Timeline data scrolled past. Dates. Events. 2025 first intercept of Vorathian scout transmissions. We learned you existed. 2031 full decryption of Imperial communication protocols. We learned your language. 2048 complete intelligence database on fleet compositions and shield frequencies, tactical doctrines, psychological profiles. We learned everything. 2065 today. We've been ready. Draxos felt something cold spreading through his chest. Not fear, not yet, but something close. The realization that he had walked into this system blind while the humans could see everything. You're lying, he said. This is psychological warfare. Attempting to, Corver's expression didn't change. Eternal Dominion, your flagship, Comac-class dreadnought, commission 2043, shield harmonic frequency 2.7 gigahertz. Primary armor composition, titanium tungsten, composite with ceramic ablative overlay. Reactor output 4.2 petawatts. Crew complement 12,347. He paused. Let those numbers hang in the air. Main plasma batteries, port and starboard arrays, 48 cannons each. Missile capacity, 630 torpedoes, mixed conventional and nuclear warheads. Point defense grid, 212 automated turrets. Faster than light drive Varanthi. Mark 7 hyperdrive, maximum range 900 light years per jump. Every specification, every detail. Information that should have been classified. Information that only Vorathaean command should possess. Should I continue, Corver asked? Or would you like me to recite the tactical manual for your standard fleet formations? I have all 17 variations memorized. In the council chamber, delegates sat in stunned silence. Crix's mandibles had stopped clicking. Thane's fur had flattened against his body in unconscious fear response. 40 years, Thane whispered. They've been preparing for 40 years. On the bridge of eternal dominion, Draxos stared at the human admiral. This calm, elderly human who spoke with the confidence of someone holding all the advantages. We know every ship class, Corver continued, every shield frequency, every armor composition, every tactical doctrine. You published it all, broadcasting your superiority across the galaxy, demonstrating your power, intimidating potential enemies. He leaned forward slightly. The first change in his expression, a hint of something that might have been satisfaction. We studied you, Fleet Marshal, for 40 years. We analyzed every battle you ever fought, every conquest you broadcast for the galaxy to see. We learned from your victories, and we found your weaknesses. The hologram changed again. Now it showed schematics, human weapons, the railguns that had destroyed Vorathaean dreadnoughts. The specifications scrolled past. Electromagnetic mass driver, Corver explained. 2-ton tungsten carbide projectile. Acceleration 0 to 90,000 kilometers per second in 0.3 seconds. Kinetic energy at impact approximately 50 megatons equivalent. Your shields dissipate energy. They're useless against solid matter at relativistic velocity. Another schematic, the erratic missiles. AI-guided kinetic missiles with nuclear warheads, programmed with advanced evasion algorithms specifically designed to counter your point defense targeting systems. They maneuver unpredictably because your computers predict based on efficiency. We made them deliberately inefficient. Another schematic, the hyperspace jamming technology. Quantum entanglement disruptor. We studied your faster-than-light drive for 40 years, found the fundamental principle, then built a system to prevent the quantum states your drives require. You can't jump to hyperspace because we won't let you. Corver sat back. His expression returned to neutral professional assessment. Everything we built, Fleet Marshal, was designed specifically to kill Vorathaean warships. Every weapon, every tactic, every strategy. We had 40 years to prepare, and we used every second of that time. Draxos found his voice. It came out rougher than he intended. 40 years. You knew we were coming. All that time. We knew someone was coming eventually, Corver corrected. Your scout probes made that clear. We didn't know it would be you specifically, but we knew the Vorathaean Empire would send a subjugation fleet sooner or later. So we prepared. Why, Draxos demanded. Why not seek alliance? Why not contact the Galactic Council? Why not attempt diplomacy? We listened to 40 years of council broadcasts, Fleet Marshal. We heard 47 species debate your conquests. We heard them vote to approve every subjugation, every annexation, every time you forced a species into the Empire. Corver's eyes hardened, just slightly, the only real emotion he had shown. Not once did we hear anyone object. Not once did we hear anyone suggest the Vorathaeans should be stopped. You were too powerful, too intimidating. The Council existed to rubber stamp your decisions, to make conquest look like cooperation. He paused. So we made a different choice. We chose self-reliance. We chose to prepare in secret. We chose to be ready when you finally came for us. And here we are. The tactical display on Draxos's bridge showed the current casualty count. 340 Vorathian ships destroyed, against 63 human vessels lost, an exchange ratio of more than 5-1 in humanity's favor. Impossible, but happening. You cannot win, Draxos said, but the conviction had drained from his voice. We still have over 500 ships. We still have numerical superiority. You will surrender, Corver interrupted, or you will all die here. Those are your only options. Surrender, Draxos felt rage replacing the cold fear. The Vorathian Empire does not surrender to primitives. Then you'll die to professionals, Corver replied. Your choice. He leaned forward again. When he spoke, his voice carried a different quality. Not anger, not satisfaction, something else. Something that sounded almost like regret. Fleet Marshal, we studied you for 40 years. We know your combat record. 9 conquests, never a failure. You're a competent commander operating within a rigid tactical framework. But you've never fought an enemy who was ready. You've never faced opposition that studied you as carefully as you studied them. Corver gestured to the tactical display visible behind him, the same battle that Draxos was watching, ships dying, formations collapsing. This isn't about technology, Fleet Marshal. It's about preparation, planning, patience. We didn't build better ships than you. We built ships specifically designed to kill your ships. We didn't develop superior weapons. We developed weapons your defenses couldn't stop. We didn't hope for victory. We engineered it. He stood. The camera followed him. 40 years, Fleet Marshal. 40 years of listening, learning, preparing. While you spent those same years conquering unprepared species and broadcasting your superiority. You taught us exactly how to defeat you, and then you came here expecting us to be another easy victory. Corver's expression softened, just slightly, almost sympathetic. That was your mistake. Draxos stared at Admiral Corver's image on the view screen. 40 years. The number kept repeating in his mind like a hammer striking metal. 40 years of preparation. 40 years of studying Vorathian tactics. 40 years of building weapons specifically designed to kill his ships. He had commanded fleets for 4 decades, conquered 9 civilizations, never questioned the superiority of Vorathian military doctrine. Why would he? It had never failed. But every species he had conquered had been unprepared, caught by surprise, overwhelmed by the sudden appearance of hundreds of warships. They had panicked, negotiated desperately, surrendered quickly. The humans had done none of those things. You knew we were coming, Draxos said quietly. For 40 years you knew. We knew someone was coming, Corver replied. Your scout probes made clear the Vorathian Empire had found us. We calculated probabilities, estimated timelines, prepared for multiple scenarios. This specific scenario, 847 ships standard subjugation protocol, was actually our primary prediction model. Draxos felt something crack inside his certainty. You predicted this exact operation, down to fleet composition and likely commander profile. You're the Empire's specialist in pre-FTL conquests. You've done this 9 times before using nearly identical tactics. Of course we predicted you would come. Of course we prepared accordingly. The tactical displays showed the current battle state. Over 300 Vorathian ships destroyed, human casualties at 63 ships. The mathematics were brutal and undeniable. Fleet Admiral Crane, Draxos said, his voice hollow. Assessment. Crane stepped closer. His cybernetic enhancements whirred softly. Sir, we're losing. Current casualty rate projects complete fleet destruction within 18 minutes if we maintain engagement. Recommend immediate withdrawal to... He stopped, looked at the navigation displays. Sir, we can't withdraw. The hyperspace jamming. We're trapped. Draxos turned back to Corver's image. What are your terms? The human admiral's expression didn't change. Still calm, still professional. Unconditional surrender of all Vorathian vessels in Sol system. Your crews will be detained but treated according to our established warfare conventions. Medical care for wounded, adequate food and shelter, no torture, no executions. You have my word as an officer that prisoners will be handled professionally. Warfare conventions. Draxos couldn't keep the bitterness from his voice. You're a pre-FTL species. You shouldn't even have concepts like, we've been fighting wars for 10,000 years, Fleet Marshal. We developed rules for treatment of prisoners centuries ago. We call them the Geneva Conventions. They established minimum standards for humane treatment of combatants and non-combatants during armed conflict. Corver's voice took on a harder edge. Just slightly. We are professionals, Fleet Marshal, not barbarians. Even in victory, we maintain discipline. Even against enemies who came to subjugate us, we extend the courtesy of civilized warfare. Tactical Officer Vesh leaned close to Draxos. Sir, he's offering better terms than we would have given them. If we refuse and continue fighting, I know what happens if we continue fighting, Draxos snapped. I can read tactical displays. He looked at his bridge, his officers, warriors who had served him for years, professionals who had followed orders without question. They were looking at him now with something he had never seen in Vorathian eyes before. Fear. Sir, the sensor officer said quietly, I'm detecting 6 human battleships moving into firing positions around us. They're targeting Eternal Dominion specifically. Draxos checked the display. She was right. 6 heavy human vessels converging on his flagship from different vectors, setting up a kill box, preparing to eliminate him personally. They're giving you one chance, Crane said. If you refuse, they'll focus fire on command ships, destroy our leadership. The fleet will fragment without coordination. It was sound tactics, professional tactics, the same approach Draxos would have used in their position. But he was Fleet Marshal Draxos, conqueror of 9 worlds, 40 years of military service. He did not surrender. He could not surrender. The Empire did not kneel to primitives no matter how well prepared they were. Send a message to all Vorathian ships, Draxos commanded. His voice was iron. We are the 7th Fleet. We represent 300 years of Imperial dominance. We will not surrender to a species that was using chemical rockets 1 generation ago. All vessels attack formation. We fight to the last ship. We fight to the last warrior. For the Empire. Across the fleet, over 500 ships received that order. Some captains hesitated. Some looked at their tactical displays and understood the futility. But training overrode doubt, discipline overrode fear. The Vorathian Empire had been built on the absolute obedience of its warriors. The fleet moved into attack formation. On the view screen, Admiral Corver's expression shifted. Not anger, not disappointment, something that looked almost like sadness. I hoped you would choose differently, Corver said quietly, for your crew's sake. But I understand. Pride, honor, the weight of history. These things matter to military men. I respect that, Fleet Marshal, even as I prepare to kill you. He straightened, military bearing, professional to the end. All human vessels, weapons free. Engage Vorathian fleet. Show no mercy until they show sense. The screen went dark. The battle resumed. But this time, the humans fought differently. No more probing attacks, no more sacrificial baiting maneuvers. They came in with overwhelming coordinated force. The 6 battleships surrounding Eternal Dominion fired simultaneously. Railgun projectiles converging from 6 different angles. 2-ton tungsten carbide rounds moving at 90,000 kilometers per second, each carrying kinetic energy equivalent to 50 megatons of TNT. Draxos's flagship tried to evade. Too massive, too slow. 3 rounds missed. 3 connected. The first projectile hit the port side armor, punched through shield and hull like they were constructed from paper. The round passed completely through the ship, creating a tunnel of destruction 3 meters wide. Compartments decompressed. Crew were sucked into vacuum. Emergency bulkheads slammed shut too late. The second round struck the starboard weapons array. 48 plasma cannons destroyed in a microsecond. The impact sent shockwaves through the entire ship. Systems failed across multiple decks. The third round hit the bridge. Draxos had one instant of perfect clarity. He saw the ceiling above him crack and buckle, saw titanium armor that should have been impenetrable split like rotten wood, saw his officers thrown from their stations by the shockwave. He thought about his 9 conquests, the species he had subjugated, the warriors who had died following his orders. 40 years of military service built on one fundamental assumption: Vorathian superiority. That assumption had been wrong. The projectile detonated its small nuclear warhead inside the bridge, designed to kill through electromagnetic pulse and radiation as much as explosive force. Every electronic system died instantly. Every organic being within 30 meters died instantly. Fleet Marshal Draxos died without time to feel pain, without time for final words, without time for anything except that one moment of understanding. He had been wrong. Eternal Dominion broke apart. The flagship that had led 9 successful conquest campaigns, that had destroyed countless enemy vessels, that was supposed to be the pinnacle of Vorathian military engineering, broke into 3 large sections and dozens of smaller fragments. The reactor core, no longer contained by its magnetic bottles, destabilized. 12,000 years of accumulated knowledge about power generation compressed into a microsecond of failure. The explosion was visible from Earth. A new star briefly igniting in the orbital space near Mars. 12,347 crew died, including the fleet marshal who had led them into this system with absolute confidence. On the bridge of his command ship, Admiral Stellan Korver watched the tactical display. Saw the icon representing Eternal Dominion change from red to gray. Target destroyed. Confirmed kill on enemy flagship, his tactical officer reported. All Vorathean command and control networks are in disarray. Individual ships are operating autonomously. Korver nodded. Continue engagement. Priority targets, capital ships, then heavy cruisers. Maintain formation discipline. We finished this professionally. The battle continued for exactly 9 more minutes. Without Draxos's leadership, without centralized command, the Vorathean fleet fell apart. Individual captains made individual decisions. Some tried to fight, some tried to flee. Some tried to surrender, broadcasting pleas for mercy on every frequency. The human fleet offered none. This was not cruelty. This was strategy. Korver had calculated the odds, calculated the necessity. If even one Vorathean ship escaped to report what happened here, the Empire would return with 10,000 warships, 20,000, whatever it took to crush Earth. So no ships could escape. No witnesses could survive. The galaxy could watch the battle through council broadcasts. But no Vorathean could leave this system alive to describe human capabilities in detail. Without centralized command, the remaining 507 Vorathean vessels fell to coordinated human strikes over the next 9 minutes. An average of 56 ships destroyed per minute, faster than the initial engagement rate, as human forces closed in for the kill. The mathematics of desperation. Ships fighting individually could not coordinate defenses, could not support each other, could not execute the complex tactical maneuvers that required fleet-wide communication. Dreadnought after dreadnought fell to kinetic weapons. The massive warships, designed to be the ultimate expression of Vorathean military power, died like all the others. Their shields useless, their armor inadequate, their size making them easier targets for weapons that traveled at 30% of light speed. Battleships tried to run only to be intercepted by faster human destroyers. The human ships, built for acceleration over comfort, could maneuver in ways that would kill unprotected organic crew. But the humans had prepared for that too. Acceleration couches, inertial dampening systems, medical support for the crushing G-forces. They had prepared for everything. Cruisers formed defensive clusters, but coordinated missile strikes overwhelmed their point defenses. Hundreds of nuclear-tipped warheads converging on single targets. The electromagnetic pulses alone were enough to scramble sensors and disable targeting systems. The radiation doses killed crew even when hulls remained intact. The kinetic impacts battered ships until armor failed and internal compartments ruptured. One Vorathean scout ship almost escaped. The Swift Messenger, built for speed over combat capability. Its captain was young. Junior officer named Keyleth, a male barely 30 years old who had never commanded during actual combat before. He pushed his engines beyond safe limits, raced toward the outer system, tried to reach a point far enough from Sol's gravity well to attempt a hyperspace jump despite the jamming. He was going to make it. The human ships were too far away, too engaged with other targets. Another few minutes, and he would be able to jump. He would escape. He would warn the Empire that humanity was not what they seemed, that this had been a trap, that the entire Vorathean understanding of human capabilities was catastrophically wrong. But then a human drone intercepted him near Jupiter's orbit, unmanned, computer-controlled, capable of acceleration that would turn organic bodies to paste inside their own skeletons. 150 gravities of constant thrust. Maneuvering that would rupture organs and snap bones. It caught the scout ship and simply rammed it at tremendous velocity. Its reinforced prow punching through the Swift Messenger's engines and reactor core. Both vessels exploded, adding 2 more debris clouds to the growing field of wreckage spreading through the Sol system. But before the collision, before the drone's sensors had locked on and committed to the ramming vector, Keyleth had managed to send one final message. A burst transmission on Vorathean emergency frequencies. A warning that would take years to reach Imperial space through conventional, faster-than-light communication relays, bouncing from beacon to beacon across the galaxy. The message was simple, desperate, terrified. Earth is not what we thought. They were ready. They were waiting. The entire fleet is lost. Do not come here. For the love of the Empire, do not come here. On at timestamp 14 minutes and 3 seconds from the start of engagement, The last Vorathaean vessel in the Sol system was destroyed, a damaged frigate trying to hide in Mars's shadow, located by human sensor sweeps and eliminated by concentrated missile fire. The captain didn't have time to surrender. Human tactical computers had calculated that the damaged ship might repair its hyperspace drive and escape, so it was prioritized for immediate destruction. No exceptions, no survivors. 847 Vorathaean warships had entered the Sol system 4 hours earlier. None remained. The human fleet had lost 91 vessels total, 63 in the initial engagement when Vorathaean forces still maintained some coordination. Another 28 destroyed in the final 9 minutes as individual Vorathaean ships fought desperately using suicide tactics and kamikaze runs that caught human forces off guard. Ships ramming human vessels. Captains detonating their own reactors near human formations. The last desperate acts of warriors who knew they were going to die anyway. But the mathematics remained brutal. The exchange ratio 9.3 to 1 in humanity's favor. In the council chamber, delegates sat in absolute silence. The view screens, which had been showing the live feed from the battle, now displayed only debris fields and the triumphant human fleet regrouping near Earth orbit. High Regent Vorn sat motionless in his elevated throne. His ancient face had gone pale gray, his red eyes dim with shock. His hands gripped the armrests of his chair like a drowning man clutching wreckage. Delegate Crick spoke first, his voice barely a whisper. The Vorathaean Empire has ruled the galaxy for 3 centuries. They have conquered 17 civilizations. They have never been defeated in battle. He paused, looked at the view screen showing human ships moving through debris fields, and a species we thought was primitive just destroyed their entire fleet in 14 minutes. Delegate Thane turned to look at his colleague. Not 14 minutes, 40 years. This didn't start 14 minutes ago. This started 4 decades ago when the humans first detected Vorathaean scout probes. They have been preparing for this exact day ever since. Around the chamber, other delegates began to understand. This wasn't a battle. This was the culmination of decades of planning, intelligence gathering, weapons development, training. The humans had turned their entire civilization toward a single purpose: survival. A new transmission came through, overriding all other communications, broadcast on every frequency, in every language spoken by Council species. Admiral Corver appeared on the view screens. Behind him, through the windows of his command center, Earth hung in space. Beautiful. Blue and green and white, untouched by war. Attention Galactic Council, attention all species. I am Admiral Stellan Corver, Earth Defense Command. I speak for humanity. His voice was calm, professional, the same tone he had used throughout the battle, but now it carried weight, the weight of absolute victory. The Vorathaean 7th Fleet entered Sol system with 847 warships and an ultimatum demanding our surrender. We rejected that ultimatum. We engaged the fleet in combat. We destroyed every vessel. There are no Vorathaean survivors in this system. He paused. Let that information sink in across the galaxy. Earth is now closed to all external contact. We are declaring a 50 light-year exclusion zone around our star. Any vessel entering this zone will be destroyed without warning. No exceptions, no second chances. Corver's expression hardened. For 40 years, we listened to Galactic Council broadcasts. We heard 47 species discuss Vorathaean conquests. We heard debates about subjugation operations. We heard votes to ratify the incorporation of conquered worlds. Not once did we hear anyone object. Not once did we hear anyone suggest the Vorathaeans should be stopped. He looked directly into the camera, directly at every species watching across the galaxy. You all knew what the Empire was doing. You all watched as they conquered species after species, and you did nothing. You were too afraid, too weak, too comfortable with the status quo to resist. His voice took on an edge like sharpened steel. So do not lecture us about the lives lost here today. You had 300 years to build something better than the Vorathaean Empire. You chose acceptance over resistance, submission over freedom. You allowed this system to exist because it was easier than fighting. Corver stepped closer to the camera. Earth will not make that mistake. We will not join your council. We will not participate in your politics. We will not rely on others for our defense. We stand alone. We defend ourselves. And we will continue to do so for as long as necessary. The holographic display behind him activated, showing a 3-dimensional map of space around Sol. Red zones mark the exclusion area, 50 light years in every direction, 17 star systems within that boundary. We have placed automated defense platforms throughout the exclusion zone. They have been operational for 20 years. You never detected them because you weren't looking. These platforms are programmed to destroy any unauthorized vessel. They don't negotiate, they don't warn, they eliminate threats. He paused again. Stay out of our space and you will never see us again. Cross into our territory and you will share the Vorathians' fate. This is your only warning. The transmission began to fade. But before it ended completely, Corver delivered one final message. We did not want this war. We would have preferred peaceful coexistence. But you showed us what happens to species who trust in councils and treaties and promises of protection. You showed us that the only security is self-reliance. The only safety is strength. The only peace is through the capacity for overwhelming violence. His eyes hardened to blue ice. So we became strong. We became capable of overwhelming violence. And now we are at peace. Our peace. Built on our terms. Defended by our weapons. The holographic projection vanished. The transmission ended, leaving the Galactic Council in stunned silence. Vorn tried to stand. Failed. His legs would not support him. 300 years of Vorathian dominance had ended in 14 minutes. The invincibility that had kept subjugated species obedient was shattered. The Empire will respond, Vorn said. His voice was weak, uncertain. We will send more fleets. We will, with what? Crix interrupted. His mandibles clicked rapidly. You just lost 847 warships. Your finest fleet marshal. Your most advanced vessels. The humans destroyed them in 14 minutes using weapons we never imagined, and they made it clear they have been preparing for 40 years. He stood from his seat, drew himself to full height. High Regent, what makes you think you have 40 years before they come for you? The question hung in the air like poison gas. Thane spoke next, his deep voice carrying across the chamber. Delegate Crix is correct. The Vorathians came to Earth expecting easy conquest. They found a prepared enemy. Who else has Earth been preparing for? What other scenarios have they planned for? How many more weapons have they built that we haven't seen? Around the chamber, delegates began to understand the full implications. Earth had shown them kinetic weapons, hyperspace jamming, stealth technology, AI-guided missiles. What else had they developed in 40 years? What capabilities remained hidden? We should reach out, another delegate suggested. Offer diplomatic relations, trade, alliance. Show them we are not enemies. They told us to stay away, Crix replied flatly. They were very clear. 50 light-year exclusion zone, no contact, no exceptions. And given what we just witnessed, I suggest we respect their wishes. Vorn's communicator chimed. An aide approached with a data slate. The High Regent read it. His face went from pale gray to ashen white. What is it? Thane asked. Reports from Vorathian garrison worlds, Vorn said hollowly. Draxus has declared independence. They expelled our administrators 3 hours ago. Thaxia is holding emergency planetary referendum on secession. Yelene has closed its borders and mobilized military forces. He looked up at the assembled delegates. The subjugated species are watching the same broadcast we are. They are seeing that the Empire can be defeated, that Vorathian ships can be destroyed. That resistance is possible. Crix made a sound that might have been laughter, bitter and sharp. You wanted to send a message, High Regent. You wanted the galaxy to witness Vorathian might, to remember why they served the Empire without question. He gestured to the view screens showing debris fields. Well, the galaxy witnessed something, just not what you intended. The council session dissolved into chaos. Delegates shouted at each other, some demanding military response, some advocating diplomatic outreach to Earth, some declaring their own world's independence from various treaty obligations. The Galactic Council, already weakened by its failure to prevent the battle, became irrelevant within hours. Species stopped attending sessions. The council station became a ghost town. Representatives returned to their homeworlds to prepare for the upheaval they knew was coming. The Vorathian Empire began to fracture. Within 3 weeks, 17 worlds had declared independence. Within 3 months, the Empire had lost half its territory. Civil war erupted as different Vorathian military commanders fought each other for control of what remained. The species that had conquered 17 civilizations was tearing itself apart, and Earth remained silent. The 50 light-year exclusion zone was absolute. No ships entered, no communications came from human space. Long-range sensors detected activity around Sol. Massive construction projects in orbit around Earth. Strange energy signatures near the outer planets. But at such distances, it was impossible to determine what the humans were building. One exploration vessel from a species called the Planets made the mistake of crossing the boundary, a small ship searching for habitable planets to colonize. It was 49.7 light-years from Sol when it crossed into the exclusion zone. There was no warning, no communication. Automated defense platforms activated and destroyed the Planet's ship with kinetic weapons. 37 crew died instantly. The message was clear. Earth had meant every word. The exclusion zone was absolute. 6 months after the battle, Admiral Stellan Korver stood in the Earth Defense Command Center, watching long-range sensor data from the edge of the exclusion zone. His staff worked quietly at their stations, monitoring, analyzing, preparing for threats that might never come. Sir, his intelligence officer said, latest analysis of galactic political situation. The Vorathian Empire has fragmented into 7 successor states. 3 are engaged in active military conflict with each other. 14 former subjugated species have formed a coalition they're calling the Liberation League. They're sharing defensive technologies and coordinating military production. Korver nodded. Good. Let them build their own defenses. Let them learn to protect themselves. Some are adopting our tactics, kinetic weapons, stealth technology, decentralized command structures. Imitation is flattery. As long as they stay outside our exclusion zone, they're welcome to copy whatever they want from observing the battle. A young officer approached hesitantly. Sir, the Liberation League has sent another request for diplomatic contact. They're asking if Earth would consider sharing defensive technologies, even on a limited basis. They promised to respect the exclusion zone. Korver turned to look at the officer. The man was young, maybe 30 years old, had been a lieutenant during the battle, competent, professional, but young. The young always wanted to help, to reach out, to make the galaxy better. Age taught you that you could only save yourself. Standard response, Korver said. Earth's position has not changed. We appreciate their respect for our boundaries, but we will not engage in diplomatic relations or technology sharing. Suggest they continue developing their own innovations. The officer nodded and left to compose the response. Korver returned to watching the sensor displays. Somewhere out there beyond the exclusion zone, the galaxy was reorganizing. Old empires falling, new alliances forming, species learning that they could resist, that they could fight, that they could survive without submitting to overwhelming power. Earth had shown them that was possible, not through aid or alliance or intervention, just through example, through demonstration that a prepared enemy could defeat a superior force. That was enough. Sir, the tactical officer called. New contact, unknown vessel, approaching from galactic north, still outside the exclusion zone but on intercept course. Korver stepped to the tactical display. Classification, unknown, doesn't match any profiles in our database. Not Vorathian, not any species we encountered in Council broadcasts. Something new. Time to exclusion zone boundary. 72 hours at current speed. Korver studied the plot, a new player, or perhaps an old player from a different region of the galaxy, either way approaching Earth with unknown intentions. Begin analysis. Full spectrum scan. I want to know everything about that vessel before it reaches our boundary. If it crosses into the exclusion zone, destroy it. Same protocols as always. Yes, sir. Korver allowed himself a small smile. 40 years preparing for the Vorathians. 6 months since the battle. And still new threats appeared. Still new challenges emerged. Good. Earth would be ready. Earth would always be ready. Because that was the lesson humanity had learned from watching the galaxy for 40 years. The lesson they had proven in 14 minutes of combat. The lesson they would never forget. The galaxy was not a place of cooperation and peace. It was a place of dominance and submission, of strength and weakness, of prepared warriors and unprepared victims. And Earth would never be unprepared again. Korver walked to the observation window, looked out at the blue and green planet turning slowly below. 8 billion people living their lives, building their cities, raising their children, dreaming of futures they would actually see. Free futures, independent futures, defended by warriors who understood that freedom had to be earned and maintained through strength. 40 years of patience, Korver said quietly to himself. The young call it waiting. The wise call it preparation. Behind him, his staff continued their work, monitoring the exclusion zone, tracking vessel movements beyond their boundary, analyzing potential threats, building new weapons, training new warriors, preparing for the next challenge. Because there would always be a next challenge. The galaxy was vast, filled with species who might see Earth's isolation as weakness, who might see the exclusion zone as a challenge rather than a warning. Let them come. Earth would be ready, always ready. Corver turned from the window, walked back to his command station, pulled up the tactical analysis of that unknown vessel, began reading specifications, studying approach vectors, calculating threat levels. An aide brought coffee, black, no sugar, the same way Corver had been drinking it for 40 years, the same way he would continue drinking it for however many years remained to him. Sir, the communications officer said, that Vorathian distress signal we intercepted 6 months ago, the one from the scout ship, our analysis suggests it will reach Vorathian core worlds in approximately 18 months. And when they receive it, they'll know what happened here. They'll know their fleet was destroyed. They'll know we're capable of defending ourselves. Will they come back with more ships? The officer hesitated. Unknown, sir. Depends on their political situation. Civil war may prevent them from organizing another subjugation fleet, or it may drive one faction to attempt conquest to legitimize their claim to imperial authority. Corver nodded. Continue monitoring. If they send another fleet, we'll be ready. If they don't, we'll be ready anyway. That's what we do now. Stay ready, always. Yes, sir. The command center fell back into its rhythm. Quiet professionalism, constant vigilance, the peaceful hum of a military force at readiness. Somewhere beyond the exclusion zone, the galaxy continued its chaos. Empires rising and falling, species forming alliances and breaking them. Wars fought over territory and resources and ideology. Earth watched it all from behind its defensive perimeter, learning, analyzing, preparing, but never intervening. That was the price of independence, the cost of security. You stood alone. You relied on no one. You trusted nothing except your own strength and your own preparation. 40 years ago, humanity had detected the first sign of alien intelligence, and they had made a choice, not to reach out in friendship, not to seek alliance or protection, but to prepare for the worst. They had been right to prepare. The galaxy had proven them right in the most brutal way possible, and now Earth stood alone, isolated, independent, free. That was enough. Admiral Stellan Corver was 64 years old. He had spent the last 40 years of his life preparing for war. 6 months ago, he had won that war in 14 minutes. He would spend however many years remained to him preparing for the next one, because that was the lesson, the only lesson that mattered. When someone underestimates you, let them. Then show them why that was their last mistake. Earth had shown the Vorathian Empire. Earth would show anyone else who needed the lesson, and the galaxy would remember. They would remember for a very long time.